What's going on YouTube? In this video, I'm going to show you how you still can make $7,000 a week in a box truck in 2021. So go ahead and like, subscribe, and let's get into the video.
I've wanted a lot of things that I couldn't have. I've done a lot of things that I shouldn't have. But I live with no regrets because I would.
Alright YouTube, in this video, we're going to show you a case study of a client that we actually dispatched for and how he just about almost hit $7,000 in a week. So yeah, it was a real grind. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so this is a rate confirmation sheet. For y'all who don't know, when you negotiate a load or book a load with a broker, they're going to give you a rate con. So on rate con, all it does is have the price that you booked the load for, where it's going to, or picking up from, and where it's going to. This one actually had 2 drops on it, and pretty much usually have sometimes have the weight, the length, just some details about the load, that you always want to confirm. But anyway, so this is one of 4 rate confirmations that we're going to be looking at. That this driver actually did 4 different loads this week, totaling almost $7,000. So let's go ahead and look at this first one. Driver actually picked up in Pennsylvania, Bedford, Pennsylvania, and he had till 3 p.m. to pick the load up, which is great. He had to pick it up at 3, his 3 o'clock appointment, or just it was ready at 3 o'clock. And he actually had 2 stops on this one. So he had a stop in Concord, North Carolina, and a stop in Swannanoa, however you want to say it. But so that's good. You always want to make sure you can get extra money if you can for these second drops, and I always like to make sure that the drops are at least close to each other, at least 30 minutes, an hour. Once you start getting over 2 hours, 3-4 hours for a second drop, that really just kills your day, because you're already probably going to spend 6 8 hours getting to one drop, then you got to drop another 4. That's and try to get a second load in a day. It can really throw you off, because even if you drop at 8 o'clock in the morning and it take an hour for them to unload you, then it's 9 a.m. and then you got to drive 4 more hours. That's 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock, and then 2 o'clock you get unloaded. Then now you got a really small window before a lot of shippers close between 3 and 5 p.m. So that's a real tight window to get a second load. So always when you have these 2 drops, try to at least make sure they was close together. They was pretty close, maybe like an hour and a half max away from each other. So yeah, this was the driver's first load. He did 1050. So how does that look on the map? The driver picked up in Bedford, Pennsylvania here, which is in the middle of Pennsylvania. Not probably closest to either Harrisburg or Pittsburgh. And as you can see, the driver's first stop was over to Concord, right outside Charlotte, and then to Swannanoa, North Carolina. And as y'all can see, difference was right around about 2 hours. So, not too bad. As long as the driver was able to get there early in the morning and get unloaded and get to the next stop, we'll be able to find a load that he can pick up. And let's actually get into his next load. So our driver's next load was picking up out of Yadkinville, North Carolina, and it was going to Baytown, Texas, which is outside of Houston. The driver actually had between 2 and 5 p.m. to get there, and they was real strict about only 2 to 5 p.m. only, will not stay late. So we definitely had to make sure that our driver got there in between that time. I think he actually got there right around about 4 o'clock. So, that was at least enough time for the shippers to get them loaded up before 5 p.m. But as y'all can see, it was 6,300 pounds, 13 pallets, 26 linear feet. So we got 26-foot box truck. The rate was $18.50 on this. So this was a Friday load, which means that usually on Friday loads you're holding those loads over the weekend. And with the mileage, it was way over 1,000 miles. So there was no doubt that this was going to be a multi-day trip. Usually, you can probably drive between, you can drive about 600 to 660 miles a day, and that just depending on, your drive time, how fast you're going, how fast your truck goes. 'Cause a lot of trucks are governed, but the faster you go, also the more fuel you're going to burn. So that's just another thing to think about. But I would say between 600 and 660 miles usually can run per day. So anything over that, usually going to be taking you 2 days to complete that trip. So another observation here, it was 13 pallets. So if in their standard pallets, 40 by 48. So I always have to make sure I tell the driver to one side is going to have to be loaded up sideways. The pallet's going to have to be loaded up sideways because if they just load the pallets up the regular way with the 40, long ways, you're not going to have enough space because the pallets are going to be too long. Usually you can only fit 12 pallets on the truck, but when you turn them sideways, you're able to increase your space by 2 extra pallets. So instead of just 12 pallets, you can actually do 14 pallets. So that's just a little tip for y'all. One of my first times out, we didn't load the truck up right, so the shipper had to go back in, take everything off, and then put it on. I had 13 pallets, had to turn them sideways. So so let's take a look at that route. So picking up the load was only 128 total miles. 2 hours to go pick it up. 128 miles of deadhead. So your total trip, we was looking at 1,205 miles. So that's definitely a 2-day trip right there. So a good thing about this trip, like I mentioned, he picked it up on a Friday. So most shippers are closed Saturdays and Sundays. So he had 3 whole days to get it there, or pretty much at least 2.5 days because he picked it up at 4 o'clock on Friday, and so he had all day Saturday and Sunday to get it there, as well as the rest of Friday, depending on how many hours he had left for the day. He ended up getting it there Monday morning, of course. And let's go ahead and look at the next load, and that's right outside Houston, Texas. So on that Monday morning, we found him a load, Conroe, Texas, going up to Princeton, Minnesota, which is outside Minneapolis. So the load was $1,900. For whatever reason, the first time I ever seen that, they charged some type of service fee. So it ended up being $1,865, which pretty much is $35 less. Throws us off from actually hitting our $7,000, but it's all cool. We actually ended up with $6,965. If it wasn't for this $35 service fee, then we would actually hit 7,000 on the head. But Raycon, plain as day. So here's an interesting thing about this broker here. So we use a factoring company, and if you don't have a factoring company, check the link in the description. I'm with TAFs, and if you want to get with TAFs, click that link. They're pretty smooth and easy to work with. But if you don't know what a factor company is, they just make sure that you get paid in 24 to 48 hours instead of the normal way to get paid, which is 30 days or 3 weeks from a broker or a shipper. So they just allows you to get paid faster because as a new business, a new trucking authority company, getting cash in is going to be kind of crucial to your survival. You don't usually have the reserves built up to be able to wait 30 days to get paid, right? So a factoring company steps in and they charge you anywhere between 3 to 4%, maybe less, a little bit more, depending on your volume, company you're with, your experience, or the type of equipment. Semi trucks maybe get some cheaper rates with certain particular companies. But the company that we with is TAFs. My driver, he's with a different company, but this company broker that we was working with was actually, I'm gonna say, brand new, or at least haven't had their brokerage long enough to have a credit score. So a lot of factoring companies weren't going to factor their loads until they have built some credit up, a relationship or whatnot. So in this situation, what do? Do you not take the load? This is a situation you got to really, really evaluate, because you can take a load by a broker and they might not pay you. So you always kind of want to read the reviews. Is it that this company just doesn't pay, carriers, trucking companies, or is they just new and they haven't built up a credit score yet? You kind of have to determine that. So I read the reviews when I run into situations like this, and I always ask the broker, hey, do you offer quick pay? Quick pay is usually an option to get paid. They charge you usually a similar percent, between 3 and 5%, to pay you in 24 to sometimes, 3 days, sometimes even 5 days after you complete the load. Another option I always ask is, hey, can y'all do half up front, half on delivery? You know, and ask them about that. We've done that before with brokers. Like, hey, give us half at the pickup and half at the drop off. And that way, you at least feel comfortable running this load for them. If they give you half up at the pickup, then cool. If they don't give you half, then you already know that, hey, maybe I just tell the shipper to go ahead and take this load off or take it back, or whatever situation you may think of to make sure you get paid. But this actual broker said that they were going to give us cash on delivery. So I asked the carrier if he was comfortable with that. Carrier we was dispatching for, if he was comfortable with that, and he said, yeah, that's fine. They said they charged 3.5%. That's pretty much what he was getting charged by his factoring company anyway. So we rolled with that, rolled the dice with that, and they did pay us. As soon as we delivered the load, paid us through an EFS check, which is just a way you can get paid. You can go to a truck stop and cash that, or you can take it to your local bank and cash that. So let's go ahead and look at the route. So the load picked up in Conroe, Texas, which is about 74 miles of deadhead, hour and 15 minutes. That's not bad at all. So I had to cut through Houston and go up north a little bit. And this was another long trip, 1,269 total miles. The load pretty much took us right outside Minneapolis, Minnesota. Not a bad trip on this one. So this is another 2-day trip. So which is cool because the driver knows he has a load. That's one less day that we have to find, the driver load, especially if he got a decent rate per mile. There's one less day that he has to sit at a shipper or receiver, so it just saves him time, energy, and you can just keep on rolling. So this was the second 2-day trip we actually had got him, during this week. So let's go ahead and look at the next load. So this is the last load here, as y'all can see on the rate confirmation. So this load was a little bit different. It wasn't a dock-to-dock situation like all the other loads. This actually was a residential pickup, and it was actually by a company that had labor-only movers. So we was actually picking up someone's personal, furniture and items and delivering it to their new location that they were moving to. We had a strict appointment at I think 11 a.m. the next day. With this load, they actually paid us $2,000, and they gave us $200 for accessorial. So that accessorial pretty much was, we had to actually go and get blankets from U-Haul, had to get some furniture dollies, appliance dollies, a little hand truck to carry some boxes. But like I said, this was still no touch to the driver besides picking up the equipment. There was labor there at the pickup and at the drop off. So it paid a total of $2,200. The driver only spent $130 of that $200, so he still was able to pocket $70 outside of just buying that equipment. So if he was late for whatever reason, or negligently late, he was gonna have to pay $1,760. So yeah, so this was a little different load. So, I mean, hey, sometimes you get loads like this, that's a little bit different. But either way, the driver, was able to complete the load. But let's actually talk about the load a little bit. So with this load, the driver was actually late. And the reason he was late because he was actually running on recaps. So let me go ahead and explain what that is. So if you don't know, your hours of service, you're allowed to drive 70 hours in an 8-day period. Once you run out of those 70 hours, you either have to take a 34-hour reset to reset your 70 hours, or you can start running on recaps. And what recaps is, whatever hours you use that previous day of the week, the previous week. So say for instance that day was Wednesday. So the previous Wednesday at midnight, he get the hours that he used back to use. That's how it works. If you don't take a 35 reset, you just keep getting hours back. So you're running on recaps. So the previous week, if you use 8 hours of drive time at midnight, you're gonna get those 8 hours back to use. If you use only 2 hours of drive time, you're only gonna have 2 hours of driving that day. So it could be kind of a crazy situation if you kind of just buzz through your hours like that. There's guys who run just completely on recaps. If you just run, 8.5 hours every single day, you never have to take a 35 reset. But in the trucking world, it's not always perfect like that. Just keep that in mind that even if you run out of hours for the week, you don't always have to do a 35 reset. You can run on recaps by using the hours from the previous day of the previous week. And if you have the ELD, it'll be set up for you like that. So you'll see like, oh crap, tomorrow your ELD is going to show you tomorrow you're going to have available 10 hours or whatever, or it'll show you how many available hours you have. So it may say you have 12 hours and you still got 4 hours today and you're going to get 8 hours tomorrow. So it's saying you have 12 available hours. But that's just how recaps and the ELD works. So the driver only had 46 miles of deadhead, 46.3 to be exact, 57 minutes. So really not bad at all. So total miles he had to drive was 649 miles, including the deadhead. So he got paid $2,200, off that 649 total miles, which is pretty much amazing, right? So if we want to look at the rate per mile for that load alone, it was $3.38. So that was one great way to cap off the week with a $3.38 load per mile. What a great week. So, oh yeah, by the way, the driver actually was late to that load. He actually was like 2 hours late picking that load up, maybe like 2.5 hours late. But as of right now, the broker didn't charge us that negligent late fee. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. When that load is billed, they don't do so. But I mean, actually, the drivers loaded up in like less than an hour. So I mean, I guess the laborers, they were pretty fast and pretty quick and pretty professional about getting it done. Maybe they just packed everything up and just had it ready to move. Which usually loading up a truck if you're moving can take some time, and unloading is usually which is fast. But that was the last trip of the day. Let's look at the total trip, y'all. Started out in Pennsylvania, dropped down to North Carolina, went all the way to Texas, up to Minnesota, way up to Minnesota, and then swung back around to the Midwest, where we ended up in Indianapolis. So look at it, the total miles driven was 3,701. With the Google map saying the drive time was 56 hours. So let me tell you, it was 4 loads, picking up at 4 different shippers and dropping off at 5 different receivers. So it was already 56 hours. So imagine if the driver spent 1 hour at each location, you're talking about an extra 9 hours. So you're looking at what 65 total hours in a week. So that is a lot of dedication. That is one hell of a week of driving time. So if y'all want to be able to make that type of money, which let me show y'all the type of money that he actually made. Let's go ahead and add up every single load. So if you look at the total, amount of money that the driver made off them 4 loads, started out with $10.50 plus $18.50 plus $18.65 plus $2,200. $6,965. Just $35 shy of $7,000 in a week. So let's look at his total rate per mile. If we divide that number by the total miles driven for the week, which was 3,701 miles, he get a total rate per mile of $1.88, which isn't bad. That's a decent, rate per mile. You know, anywhere if you can average that on a consistent basis, you can make good money. You know, when you're out here getting these loads, you know, you don't want to take anything less than $1.50 at all, and you always want to shoot to get above $2. But you know, if you can be in that sweet spot, you're still making great money. Like, you know, not every load is going to be a $3.38, per mile load. Some loads going to be $1.65 or whatever the case may be. But you know, sometimes you got to get out of that particular area, and sometimes you got to keep the truck moving. So overall, guys, so that was the whole full case study. There's a client that we dispatched for. That was a great week for him. You know, a great week for us as well. You know, by the way, we're not. I'm going to keep it honest with y'all. We cannot take any more box truck clients on. I know a lot of y'all may be looking for dispatchers. I suggest, hitting them Facebook groups, vetting out your dispatchers. I'll probably do a video on how to find a good dispatcher really, really soon. But definitely vet out your dispatcher. Make sure they don't have too many, clients they work with, and I've reached our capacity for box trucks. Now, if you're in a semi truck, we have a whole new semi truck division. So if you're dry van looking for a dispatcher, power only looking for a dispatcher, definitely hit us up, email us, hit me on Instagram, and I can point you in the right direction. But anyway, guys, driver made almost $7,000 in a week. To make that type of money, obviously he was running 65 hours, in a week. So ask yourself, are you really dedicated to really run like that to make that type of money? Because that's really ultimately what it's going to take. I mean, and as you saw, he wasn't home on the weekends. I mean, he was out. And this particular driver, he goes where the money goes. He lives in North Carolina. So he had opportunity to go home on that Friday. But you know what he did? He decided to take a load going 1,200 miles to Texas. So, I mean, he chased the money. And if you really, really want to consistently make, top dollar in this business, you're going to have to be chasing the money, especially in a box truck. I mean, and maybe in a semi truck, you kind of can pick your lanes, but in a box truck, you kind of got to go where the money goes, a lot of the times. And he just took him where the money took him. So all in all, guys, if you really want to run, you got to get out there. You got to hustle and be ready to ride. Not trying to sugarcoat this business. It is a hustle. If you used to work in 40-hour work weeks, I mean, this business is going to be a little tough for you if you really want to make the big money. If you comfortable making maybe less money, maybe $4,000 to $5,000 a week, be home every weekend, then that's your choice. But anyway, guys, if you found this video helpful, go ahead and like this video, go ahead and subscribe, and always stay tuned for future videos. Peace.